Where what?
Where you had widescreen where there's only one E.
Oh,
That's
thank you,
correct.
thank you, thanks. Okay, yeah, there should be two E's in widescreen. Okay, thank you. Now, couple things. First, I want to tell you this, and sorry if you guys have heard this already. If you have, put your earphones back in. Okay? Now, I was working literally in a food store in a produce department. I know you all probably know Kohl's department stores. Kohl's started out as food stores. Most people don't know that, but they were only based in Wisconsin. All right. Well, the reason I'm telling you that is I had been working there for 10 years, and right out of high school, I went and I got a degree in journalism because I was going to be the next Clark Kent. All right, without being able to fly. But I sent out 300 resumes and heard back from three places. All right. And of course, they were all no. So I got a job where I was temping, so to speak, at a paper in Milwaukee, but I was making almost nothing. So I stayed at Kohl's. And actually, the last year I worked at Kohl's, I made probably $40,000. All right. That was in the early 80s. And I'll think about that back then. That was really, really good money. It's not terrible money now, but it was really good money then. Problem was, I'd say this all the time, you could teach a monkey to do what I did. And probably an hour later, the monkey would do it better because the monkey probably wouldn't have been as bored as I was. So I talked with my wife about it, and we decided that I'd go back to school. All right. And I would get a degree in, back then it was called data processing. Then it went to computer science. Now it's information technology. But I was going to get a degree in that. Okay. And so I did. I actually started during the summer, and it was a programming class that was being offered at the school I was going to, and I thought, great, I can see what this is all about. The only problem was we wrote two programs in the entire class, and the first one we wrote the first day, which put our name on the screen. So I didn't learn a whole heck of a lot, all right? But it was a shorter class. It wasn't, or it only lasted for about 4 weeks. Then I noticed at a University of Wisconsin extension in the next town over, they were having a programming class, and I thought, okay, I'll audit this class. And I talked to them. It was the same price to audit as it was to take it. I wasn't going to take any other classes there, so I took it for a grade. All right. There's a point to this story. Just give me a second. First day of class, we walk in there. The guy lectures. You notice how I lecture for like 50, 55 minutes, maybe an hour. This guy lectured for 3 hours, then gave us a break. Okay, and I'm like, this is going to be just a blast. All right, and I'm not saying I have the greatest voice in the world, but I don't really lecture a lot and talk like this. That's what I listened to for 3 hours. Then we came back from the break. He lectured for another hour, and at the end, he said, okay, this is your first program. Now, it's really simple. And he goes, so don't feel bad because they'll get harder. He said, I want you to basically create an array of 25 different random numbers, and I want you to go through each one of them, and I want you to separate them into prime numbers and non-primes. And there were people that were laughing, like, oh my God. I'm sitting there by myself, and I'm thinking, holy crap. I don't know what a prime number is. I don't know what an array is. I don't know what any of this stuff is. So I went to the library. Back in those days, we didn't have an internet. We had a card catalog. So I went and finally found array in a math book. So I sat there that afternoon and I read the math book. And I realized as I was reading it, I was in an air conditioned building, but I had pit stains like you wouldn't believe. And I was sweating because I thought I can't do this stuff. I even went home and told it to my wife. She's like, give it a try. Just cut it out. Actually, she told me it was a little more subtly than that, and she actually used a swear word in there, which isn't her. But so I kept on. I got it done. Most of those people came to class that it was due a week later. I got it done and I worked on it, etc., because they had a lab. I didn't have a computer then, but I got it done and I learned. The bottom line is this: I got an A in that class. That class that I took during the summer, the real short one, I got a B. And that was my fault because I didn't follow the instructions. And since we only had two programs, I screwed up on the second one. So I went from an A to a B. Okay, I stayed there another year and a half. I took 12 classes and I got 12 A's. All right. I went on and I'd already had my 4-year degree in journalism. So when I went on, I immediately went on for my master's degree. All right. I took a couple classes first that weren't part of the master's degree because I wanted to learn more about computer hardware because I know nothing. After taking those 2 classes, one taught by a guy from India, the other one taught by a guy from Iran, I still didn't know anything. I got C's in both classes. But all the courses, the things for the rest of my degree, 11 classes, I got 11 A's. So the point is, if you feel a little bit overburdened or like I can't do this, you shouldn't. All right. I'm serious. I've said this to people before. If I can do it, you can do it. All right. Okay. So what have we done so far? I'm just going to quickly review everything. We came into here, we generated this stuff automatically. I'm taking for granted, I don't have to tell you that anymore. If I go in and say to you, create an index.html file and get it ready so we can start putting stuff in, you know how to do this. All right. Then we changed the title to make it more representative of what we're talking about. And we added that link tag. Remember, all I had to type in there was link, hit tab, and then I had to fill this in. So when I put in the CSS/, it found styles.css for me. Then I put in the script tag. I just typed in script and hit tab rather. And then I had to put in this. All right. Then we came into our body. And again, this is going to be responsive website design. Now, unfortunately, when I did it before, I screwed it up. But now watch. Now notice that when I do this and I make it smaller, oh my goodness, it usually lets me move it over at least a little bit. There we go. Now notice I get the screen width and the screen height. All right. The way that we were able to do that, I'm not going to explain these things. I think everybody gets these. All right. Guess what? The first thing we're going to do in our CSS is we're going to make all of them disappear. We don't want those to show. We only want this one to show if it's mobile size. We want this one to show if it's if it's tablet size, etc. All right. So let's put a T in there. So it says tablet instead of table. All right. So I went out onto the internet and I found out these are the standard sizes. Does that make sense to everybody? I don't want to go over that again. Then I just made a div for each one of these. I'm not going to add any, there's no code you have to add for this. When the program runs, there'll be nothing you'll have to do other than to take your screen and do this with it. And it's going to turn colors. That's what we're going to have, hopefully within 20 minutes or so. All right. Then I put 4 blank lines, and then I added a paragraph with a button in it. The button says current screen size. I could have had it say click me, but that wouldn't have been very representative of what it's for. And this says, this is what's called an input tag. All right. And the type of the tag that we're creating is button. When we get to chapter 11, we'll learn about all the other types that you could put in there. Text for a text box. Tell if you want to put in a telephone number, etc. We'll talk about those later. All right. And then, again, this is what the button says. But I'm saying when you click the button, I want you to call this routine right here. That routine, the spelling, the caseness, etc. This right here must be exactly the same as this. Must be. I can't spell it differently because otherwise it's not going to work. It's like if I say, hey, Michael, come over here. But I say, hey, Bob, come over here. He's probably not going to come. If I look right at him, he might come over here and say, it's Michael, it's not Bob. Right? You laugh, James, you're laughing. I had a guy do work on my house during summer. All right. First of all, he gave me a price, and then he didn't want to stick to that price. But I introduced myself the first day. I said, hi, my name's Jeff Scott. Just call me Jeff. He said, hi. His name was Ed. He gave me his last name. He said, call me Ed. All right. And he calls me up the next day. He goes, how's it going, Jim? And then I had to meet him one day at Lowe's, and he goes, hey, Jim. And I told my wife, I'm not even going to correct the guy anymore. I'm Jim from now on. She goes, wow, should I call you that too? All right. So in this particular function, and all the function is it's a unit of work. We're telling it, this is creating what's called a variable. We could have called it width. We could have called them orange and brown. It doesn't matter. But W for width, H for height. These are built-in routines that tell you the current size of your screen, the width of it, and the height of it. Then we just said to display that. Don't worry about the backticks or any of that other stuff. We go over everything that's in here. We go over when we're in the JavaScript part of the class. So if this makes absolutely zero sense to you, it's fine. All right. But now, like I said, we now have a working HTML page and a working JavaScript page. We know that because you saw that when I ran this, I can click that and it's giving me that information. So that's good. If yours isn't working, I'll take your question in a second. If yours isn't working, why wouldn't it work? All right. Just talk about the main reasons. And I'm not saying this is why, but first thing to look at, I've already mentioned this. This right here, display current screen size, must be spelled exactly the same as the way you put it in your HTML file. And the caseness must be the same. This is a case-sensitive language when it comes to naming your functions and naming your variables. Must be the same. Next, you need parentheses after this. All right? Paren. You must put those in. And everything that we're doing in here must be between curly braces. Now, I'm not asking, but my guess is at least with some of you, if not all of you, but at least with some of you, you're like, my curly braces and parentheses aren't that color. Why are yours that color? Because I went over to extensions here, and there is something that's called, I think it's bracket colorizer or something like that. I don't know. I thought it was colorizer. It doesn't look like it's finding it.
Bracket pair colorizer?
Yeah, there you go. Bracket pair colorizer. You don't have to add that, but you can. What's really nice is if you've got a lot of parentheses within parentheses or a lot of curly braces within curly braces, it puts each set in a different color. All right? But you don't have to add that if you don't want to. I put it in there. Sometimes it drives me nuts. Other times I'm really glad I haven't. All right? So why else could it be failing? Again, if you're missing that curly brace, if that curly brace is turned the wrong direction, this one has to be left facing. This one must be right facing. If you spell the word alert wrong, if you spell the word window wrong, or inner width if you didn't give it a capital W, or inner height if you didn't give it a capital H, or in here, you didn't put a backtick here and end it with a backtick. If you didn't put this in parentheses, if you didn't preface this with a $sign. So you can see that when you're going through here and you're trying to figure out why your code didn't work, all right, these guys know this because they've done it for a semester. You are doing what's called debugging your code. They've heard this. You may or may not have. Many, many years ago, back when computers were the size of this room, a computer, they had those big vacuum tubes in them. There was a woman in the Navy, one of the most famous computer people of all times, was not even 5 feet tall. Grace Hopper was her name. All right. And she was working on a program one day and it didn't work. She checked her logic and double checked her logic and said the logic was correct. Why wasn't it working? So she went and said maybe one of the tubes is bad. They took off the back of the computer and they found a moth in there. That was literally the first computer bug ever. Removing that was debugging the program. Ever since then, basically, that's what it's been known as. All right. So, like I said, this name right here has to be exactly the same as that name right there. They can't be spelled any differently. The caseness can't be any different. You must put parens here. It really doesn't need the semicolon, but I put it in there anyway. It doesn't hurt to put it in. Don't put in a bunch of them, but you can put in one at the end. So again, this is saying when I click the button that says current screen size, I want you to go and find a JavaScript file named display current screen size, and I want you to run that file. Does that make sense? Still have a question?
You answered it.
Okay. So let's go over to our styles.css, which as far as I can tell, is currently empty. All right. We're going to write some CSS now. When we get done, we're going to go over chapter 8, and I'm hoping that by doing what we're doing now, it'll help your understanding when we get into the middle part of chapter 8, because that's what they're going to be talking about, is what we're about to do. All right. So I'm going to do a couple preliminary things. In fact, what did we say yesterday? We put in some global settings. So in my body, in fact, remember we said at the beginning, instead of we'll do a reset here. So I'll just say margin 0, padding 0. All right. Now, you already know this. Please stop typing and look on the screen. See how that changed that? We're going to put in our own margin and padding in just a couple minutes. But we just removed everything that the browser put in by default. All right. So we've got that. Then for our body, I just want to make it look a little nicer. It's not going to look fantastic, but it's fine. So I'm going to say font family. And we will use the one with Arial. If you don't like that, you want to try a different font. Doesn't hurt anything. I don't care. Our text color is going to be white. Pounds FFF. In fact, I'm going to make it black. 000. Our background color, when we first start running it, don't worry, because it's going to change almost immediately. So our background color is going to be gray, which is pound 808080. All right. We're going to do a text align center. And we're going to put some top padding in there of 100 pixels. In fact, we'll just say 6 rem. Now, please look at the screen. I haven't saved yet. You with me? I have not saved. Remember, it'll look like this, right? So by putting in those changes that we just put in and doing a file, save all right, you can see real quickly what we've done. All right. Now, what is going to happen in just a couple minutes is if we've got a really, really, really small screen size. You with me? Like for a phone, it's going to be, our background is going to change to red, and you're only going to see the mobile phone. When it gets a little bit bigger, it's going to be another color. I wanted to use white, but it just looked too black. So I used eggshell white. And then it's going to say iPad tablet. When we make it a little bigger than that, it's going to turn blue and say laptop. When we make it a little bigger than that, you get the idea. So that's what's going to happen if we do this correctly. All right. But what we want to have happen is when this program starts to run like this, we don't want any of these to show. We only want to bring them back in if it's that size. Right now, we don't want that. And it's very easy to remove them. And I don't mean to, when I say remove, I don't mean physically get rid of them. Instead, we're going to come in here and we're going to say, hey, for our H1 tag, so this is the regular stuff. We could put a comment here. I don't even know what to say. But for the H1, we're going to say display none. They're still there, but you can look at it, for lack of better words, we're making them invisible. All right. And what you'll notice now after I save and go back, they're not there anymore. All right. We will bring them back on an as needed basis. Now, I could play with this button. Doesn't really look like a button right now. We could put some padding in there. I'm not going to do that. If you want to do that, go ahead. The button works fine as it is, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. All right? Okay, now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to write separate types of CSS for each one of these. So we want a certain block of CSS if it's a mobile phone, certain block of CSS if it's a tablet, certain block of CSS if it's a laptop, etc. You with me? All right. And what that means is, depending on the type of media that we're using to look at this, all right, depending on that type of media, all right, we want it to look a certain way. The reason I use the word media is what we're going to use in here, and you'll see it in Chapter 8, are what are called media queries. We have to let the system know when it queries us, hey, if the screen is this size, do this. Otherwise, if it's this size, do this. Otherwise, if it's etc. All right? And I'm going to show you something really interesting in just a bit that I found out yesterday that I'd never seen in all my years doing this. I thought it was kind of cool. It may not seem like it to you, but we'll see in just a couple minutes. All right. So to do these, if you write media queries, what some people do is they make another CSS file. So they make a second file and call them media queries. Then when they add in here, they add their media query file right underneath their styles file. You can do that. This whole thing is just one page and a couple lines on the back. So I'm going to put it all in one file. All right. I mean, sometimes I do put it in multiple files, sometimes in one. Either way, it's not really that big of a thing. All right. But I'm going to put a comment here that says phone media query. All right. And now I'm going to show you how to write media queries. Let me write the whole thing. It's about 6 lines. And then we'll go and decompose it, and we'll go over every line that's in there. All right. And I'm going to suggest that after we do this, that you go and you copy that for the other 5 times, and then we'll just make changes. Unless you want to do a lot of typing. That's totally up to you. All right. So that's all of it. All right. So even if you're typing, I'll give you time. Just please stop for a second so I can explain what's going on in each one of these. This says if the width of my screen is anywhere between 0 pixels, which doesn't make any sense, well, let's say 1 pixel, and 480 pixels, I want the background of my screen to now be red, and I want that H1 tag that I showed you to show. Does that make sense? Now, I'm going to leave it up here, but let me save this, and let me go in here, and now let me make my screen size. Watch what happens when I hit that width. See that? And it's blue because I clicked on it before. Now, why am I showing you this? This is why I put the button in. See this? It says 484 for the width. Remember we said after 480 turn, now it's 475. So we're really going to be able to check this. Does what I'm saying make sense to people? All right. So I'll give you a second to go and put that one in. There it is. So that's the first query. And again, that will handle phones. We're gonna go from smaller to bigger. Are you all with me? Some books will go from bigger to smaller. Some books won't even put it in any kind of order. I don't know why, but to me, the more logical order you put into something, the easier it is for other people to look at and understand what you're trying to do. And what you're going to find out if you're a developer, whether you're writing programs, C# programs, or Android programs in Java, or you're writing web stuff, there's a chance that you're going to be creating something and somebody else is going to be maintaining what you did. So if you write it for, and make it easy for them to understand, they will not become your new best friend. All right? And you guys may have heard this already. This is no joke. I left AT&T. I was a C programmer at AT&T Bell Laboratories in the mid 80s. And I left, and 5 years later, I don't know how this person even got my phone number. I knew her, but I'd never given her my phone number. Not only it wasn't a cell phone, it was my work phone number. She goes, I pick it up, I go, hello? She goes, hi, Jeff, this is Kathy Grubbs. Remember me? I said, yeah, from AT&T. And she said, yeah. She said, do you remember that RTA code you were working on a few years ago? And I went, nope. And I hung up the phone. She never called back. But I knew if I answered it for her, I could have looked it up and I could have figured it out. But then she would have been calling me after that. Hey, I got another question for you. Nope. Ain't going to happen. All right. In fact, that job I was at the time, I was working for an aerospace company. I wrote a program for them. I wrote this special system for them. It was almost 10,000 lines long, and almost half of those lines were comments. I put complete program runs in there because I knew I was going to be quitting the place, and I didn't want the person who was going to take over for me to be bugging me. So I put a ton of comments in there. His name was Mark Wilson, terrific guy. And I said, Mark, do you understand it? He starts laughing. He goes, how could I not? You put complete program runs in here. But it was something that ran once a day. And even though I had a ton of comments, it didn't matter. It wasn't a timing thing. So it was fine to do that. All right. So I'm going to copy all of this, every bit of this, copy to the clipboard, highlight it, Control C, hit Enter, Control V. Now I want to change. The next one's going to be a tablet. Now, since this one ended at 480, we've got to do more than this. This one has a range. Remember these numbers up here that I showed you, these numbers? This really isn't this. The way we wrote the query, that one is really this. Because we gave it a minimum, a maximum rather, we didn't give it a minimum. All right, but now we've got a minimum and we've got a maximum. Now, I'm just going to tell you this. I don't know if it'll happen again because this had never happened to me before. I believe, was able to play with this and get it so it was at 480.5 pixels. You with me? And the default color is gray. Once you start running this, it should never go back to gray, but I got it to go gray. And never happened before. So actually, I'm just going to show you this. You can change it. You don't have to change it. But actually, in my CSS, I actually made this one. The first one I showed you, I made that 480.5. All right. And I said max width of that. And the next one, I said 480.6. Okay. And I've got to make a couple changes in here. First thing is, I want the color to change. So what was that? Tablet background. Well, I guess I did make it white. I thought I made it eggshell, but that's fine. All right. So let me change this. So now I've got to give it two things. So in other words, I want to come in here and say min width. So minimum width. So min width of 480.6 pixels. And a max width of 768 pixels. It looks a little strange the way you have to write this, and it's expecting it to be in this way, The only other thing I have to change then is this changes right here to, I think it's iPad-tablet. So that's the second one. And we're going to make 4 more of these, and then we're done. All right? Now, if you look at the screen, please, just stop for a second, even if you're typing. Now look, okay? You see it's red. Now it went to white. Once it passes that threshold, it should go back again to gray. Come on. It will. There we go. So, still gray. Now it's white. So what size is it now? 777. You're probably better at this than I am. It's a little smaller. 774. But you'll notice as soon as it turns white, I'll try to stop it there. 767. See that? So what I was able to do is I was able to actually get it where it turns here. This should go right from white to red like that. But if I didn't put in that 0.5 and 0.6, it was gray for like 1 pixel. And I had never seen that before. All right. So now it's going to be much easier because now I'm going to go to this one here and I'm going to copy it. And if you're still working on it, they're both here. I'll have them both up here. They're both here. So this one, since this one ends at 768, this one must start at what? 769. And it goes to 1024. And this is the one for a laptop. All right. So it went from iPhone to tablet, and this one is laptop query. And I changed the color of that to blue. 0000FF. And the one I want to display now is laptop. All right. Now, give me a sec. So now it's gray. Oops. Try that again. It's gray. It's white. Blue didn't show. I may not have saved. All right, so I'm going to check and double check and make sure I did. So file, save. All right. Oh, something's wrong, but I'll fix it. But red, white, and that should be turning blue right there, and it's not. So let's see if we can figure out why not. I didn't put pixels here. All right, so it's 769 px. That should fix everything. Let's see. See how it's blue already? So I can go, I made it all kind of patriotic. Red, white, and blue. We haven't handled the rest of them yet, but it's half done already. Okay?
You don't need to set the minimum size for the phone query?
No. We could have put minimum width 320, but if you look on the screen here, I mean, it's a good question. I can't really go any more than that. All right. And all I'm doing now is it's just going to be it's a color thing. So I could, if I was making, I could have made it 320 with no problem. All right. So let's go back to here. Now I want to ask you this. Does everybody have this one? The phone one? Does everybody have that one? If you don't, say something.
Yeah, I do, but I'm trying to like run it in the last paper and smaller.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at it in a second then. But
We'll also go with the iPad one.
okay.
The screen won't go any smaller.
I'm in the same boat.
Okay. We'll look at it in just a minute. All right. So everybody has the phone though, correct? All right. Then I'll move up. So that one's at the top. So we're at the tablet. One thing to check on for that, I'm not saying you made this error, but I make it, like I said, make sure you say pixels. Make sure you spell min and max right. Make sure you put a hyphen in there. Make sure you spell width correctly. I know it sounds like real simple stuff. I can't believe the number of times I spell the word display wrong. All right. And it's funny, when I spell website, it comes out webisti almost all the time. All right. But we'll take a look at it. We'll fix it. And make sure that you've got a curly here. And that beginning curly here ends here. And make sure you got a curly here and here. And a curly here and here. All right. If you say I got all those and it still doesn't work, then we'll have to take a look at it. I'm not worried about it. We'll figure out what it is. So does everybody have the tablet one, the second one? All right. Then I'm going to move down to the laptop, the one we just did. All right. And with that one, since I've got it working, I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. And right underneath it, I'm going to put the next one, which was desktop. And since the last one ended at 1024, I'm starting this one at 1025. And this one goes to 1200. Anything more than 1200 pixels is considered an extra large device. I didn't make those rules. Someone else did. All right. And I wasn't real creative with my colorings. So I used FF00FF, which came out, I think it was kind of a fuchsia. And this one, desktop. That's the other thing, Nick, with what you were saying. Make sure with the first one here, and I'm not saying it doesn't, but with your phone, make sure this says mobile phone and make sure it's exactly the same as what you declared for the ID in the index.html file. All right. Then the same thing with iPad tablet, and the same thing with laptop, and the same thing with desktop. All right. So I'm going to save this, and I want to just see now if I've got my fourth color in here. So there's gray, there's red, there's white, there's blue, there's fuchsia. I think that's fuchsia. I don't really care, but you get the idea. Does everybody now have the laptop stuff? All right, I'm going to move that up. And we're at desktop right now. So now we need widescreen. So again, I'm coming in here. I'm going to copy all of that. That starts at 1201. In fact, that one only needs a min width, 1201, because that's everything 1201 pixels and above. Okay. The background on that, I made 0000FF. No, I didn't. I made it 00FFFF, like that, which was a turquoise, I guess. And I made this one widescreen. All right. So that's 1201 and above. And I don't even know if mine will go wider than that. You see what I'm saying? So, oh, I guess it does. So if I look at it, it says it's 1280. So that worked. But notice when I start moving it down, when it hits that magic, it might be because of this. Yep. So it is what it was. There it is. And as I start moving it down, then it goes to fuchsia. Then as I move it down some more, it goes to blue. Then it goes to white. And eventually it goes to red. All right. The only thing that's left on here is the landscape. Now, everything that we've done in here, I'm not asking you this, I'm telling you this. Everything we've done in here so far has been a min width and a max width. Width For landscape, it's height. You can do a min height or a max height the same way you can do a min width or a max width. All right, so I'm going to just copy this widescreen thing. And down below here, I'm going to paste that in, and I'm just going to call this landscape query. And this is a max, not width, or a min width rather. This is a max height of 500 pixels. So that means anything between 0 and 500 for the height. All right, if that's the case, I made this FFFF00. Like I said, you can see I wasn't real original. And this says landscape. All right. Now, I want to show you this. So even if you're still typing, I would like you to look at this, please. I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to actually run this. And I'm going to right mouse click here. And I'm going to choose inspect, which is at the very bottom. I'd like you to do the same. So on your running program, all right, so with this up, it doesn't matter the size right now. That doesn't matter. But I'd like you to right mouse click and choose inspect, which is at the very bottom. All right. Now, yours may look like this and it may not. I'm going to take for granted that it doesn't. If you look up on my screen here, see these two boxes? Click on the second box that you see there. Click on the second one. That brings up your emulator. So now this is what this would look like in a Pixel 2. Now it's what it would look like in an iPhone X. Get the idea? And there is a button over here. I always forget where it is, and I'm sorry. But one of the things that's over here, oh, where the heck is it? There's something over here that allows you to go, there it is. I had to make it wider. See this thing? Kind of looks like a sideways football. See that? That's how you got to check your landscape. Now it says landscape and laptop, but I'm more concerned that it says landscape. So it seems to be handling my landscape. On the other hand, if I go over and I check an iPad Pro, which is almost the size of a regular computer, and I go there, notice it doesn't say that anymore. Because why? Because look at the height. It's 1024. All right. So this is a way. Now this is a cheesy way to test stuff. You can literally go out to the internet, and you can grab emulators and simulators of browser versions, of phones, of different computers. That's how you'd really want to test. Or, now I took a class once where I was working, and I took this class, and I talked my boss into letting me take it because it was more on the creative side. And it was in downtown Chicago, and the guy who was teaching it he was a freelancer, but he mainly worked for advertising companies. He had it baked in, put into his contract, that if he was creating something for a company, and that company, if they all used a certain type of computer, certain brands, certain models, certain this, certain that, he'd get one. Because that's what he built the stuff on. Because most of the stuff he did was local for the company. I mean, in that case, you might want to do something. Now, they didn't let him keep it, of course. But while he was working on it, that's the computer he used. That's the best way to test, is to actually have a computer and have about, I don't know, umpteen different ways of putting on different browsers and different versions of browsers. Even with that, it's literally just about impossible to check and test everything. When you start thinking of the number of different combinations that are available. I don't think I could do it. That'd be a full-time job right there. All right. Now, your still doesn't work, correct?
Just for looks like just for the smallest.
The smallest one. Yours.
I did have a thing where I just think when we try to shrink our screen down, doesn't go any farther past the iPad size. And the web browser.
Okay.
What we're trading with that too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why, because I would,
Because yeah, when I ran it in inspection, it worked. Like my mobile phone one popped up. And
okay. Okay.
I see what you're saying, yeah, the minimum width on my browser too is 500.
Okay.
That's
You,
probably
you,
why
you,
it
you may even want to Google that and see if there's a way that you can reset that. I don't know, because I don't know if there is or not. That's why. All right. I'll tell you what, let's do this. The second half of chapter 8 is, guess what? All on media queries. So I figured it'd be much easier to show this to you and introduce it to you that way. All right. Give me a second here. We'll take a break at 10:15, okay? So